Don't ruin your life. Don't steal anything ever. This is my best definition of to steal. To intentionally take something from another person or entity without freely given permission, except in exigent circumstances, followed by full and timely recompense for the thing or things taken. When people think about stealing, they generally think of obvious types of stealing, such as robbing banks or stores, car theft, home burglary, shoplifting, etc. The type of stealing that can get you arrested and possibly put in prison. They ignore supposedly minor types of stealing, where you'll probably never get caught, and if caught, there will be zero or relatively minor punishment. Examples: stealing office supplies, stealing hotel towels, stealing supplies from a job site, stealing signs, stealing time from your employer, stealing employee time from a retail store, stealing movies via pirated DVDs or internet downloads. Some people believe that stealing from a large, impersonal, and comparatively wealthy entity such as a city, a corporation, or a small business is somehow acceptable. But these seemingly small thefts are still wrong because they violate the golden rule. For example, you might think that stealing a street sign to hang on your wall is acceptable because the sign was paid for by a large group of people, maybe a city of millions. The overwhelming majority of individuals in such a group will probably never notice the loss, personally or financially. But the fact is, you're simply stealing from many people instead of one. It's still stealing. The missing signs must be remanufactured, and workers must replace it, adding to the cost of the original sign. While the replacement sign is being ordered, manufactured, delivered, and ultimately replaced, anyone who needed that sign to help find their way or locate an address has been harmed by you. Some further considerations. 1. What if everyone thought that stealing a sign or other city property was acceptable? What would be the total effect on the city? 2. Stealing a street sign is an actual crime, perhaps even a felony where you live. If caught and convicted, you'll have a criminal record. 3. Thefts that are technically crimes but would probably never be legally prosecuted, such as stealing office supplies, could still cost you your job. 4. Believing that minor thefts are acceptable can subconsciously put you on the path to rationalizing larger thefts. Another supposedly minor type of theft listed above is stealing employee time from retail stores. For example, you want to order some product on the internet, but you're not sure which size or color suits you. So you go into a local store that has the product, examine it, make a decision, then leave and order the product online to save a few dollars. You know very well that the retail business probably paid for the product as inventory, paid to have it delivered, paid someone to put it on the shelf, paid for the retail space where you could examine the product at your leisure and in comfort, and paid to have an employee available to help you find the product and to answer questions about it, and perhaps even paid for a separate cashier to perform the actual sales transaction. In return for all of this, although you pretended to be a real customer, you planned from the beginning to give them nothing. That's a form of stealing from the business and from its employees, especially if they're on commission. Cheating is also a type of stealing, whether in a card game played for money, a round of golf with friends, or a board game played by children. In the case of cheating and gambling, you're stealing money. In the case of sports or children's games, you're stealing the joy and satisfaction that other players would have if they won. There are situations where you might take something from another person or entity without permission, but you're not actually stealing. For example, you might unintentionally take something from a store by failing to scan an item in your shopping cart or by putting an item in your pocket and forgetting to pay for it when you leave. I've done both things myself. If it was not intentional, then it wasn't stealing, unless you never return and pay for it, of course, in which case you are stealing. A situation where you might intentionally take something from another person or entity without permission, but which isn't actually stealing, would be in exigent circumstances. Exigent means requiring urgent aid or action to prevent a bad or worse situation, such as property destruction, injury, or death. For example, a fire starts in your house and you remember that your neighbor, who is at work, has a fire extinguisher in her garage. You run next door, grab the fire extinguisher from her garage, and use it to put out the fire. Did you steal the fire extinguisher? Again, here's the definition of to steal that we're using, given at the very beginning of this section. To intentionally take something from another person or entity without freely given permission, except in exigent circumstances, followed by full and timely recompense for the thing or things taken. You didn't get permission to take the fire extinguisher, but basic reasoning says the fire was an exigent circumstance. Legal tradition also recognizes the concept and validity of exigent circumstances. In the U.S., exigent circumstances can override even the fundamental laws listed in the Bill of Rights. So in this case, the isolated act of taking the fire extinguisher doesn't qualify as stealing. However, the definition of stealing given above includes a requirement for full and timely recompense. Your neighbor may tell you to forget about paying for the fire extinguisher, but if she wants you to pay for it and you don't pay soon or ever, then you stole it. In the end, there's no such thing as a small theft. Any theft of any size or type not only harms the victim or victims, it also destroys a key part of your personal integrity.